The cold autumn wind crept through the empty streets, stirring up leaves and carrying with it whispers of unseen things lurking in the darkness. I pulled my coat tighter around myself as I hurried down the sidewalk, eyes darting about for any signs of movement. This town had felt off lately, heavy with a tense, ominous atmosphere that kept residents shuttered behind closed doors and blinds. My name's Alex Thompson, and I'm a paranormal investigator. I've spent years chasing ghosts, cryptids, and other unexplained phenomena across the country. Lately, I'd been hearing disturbing rumors about this normally quiet town, stories of creatures glimpsed only briefly out of the corner of one's eye, stalking the unaware from the shadows. Intrigued, I came to investigate, but I was starting to wonder if I'd bitten off more than I could chew. A scraping sound, like claws on concrete, came from a nearby alley. I paused, squinting into the darkness but seeing nothing. Probably just a stray cat, I told myself, yet couldn't shake the feeling of unseen eyes tracking my every move. I quickened my pace. I was relieved when my friend Sarah's apartment building came into view. If anyone could help me make sense of this town's strange happenings, it was her. Sarah had lived here all her life and knew all the local legends. If these rumored creatures had roots in the town's history, she'd be able to shed some light. Sarah welcomed me in, her smile warm but her eyes troubled. "You came at a bad time," she said. "There's something evil lurking here, Alex. I can feel it watching me at night." She shuddered, hugging her arms around herself. "Please tell me you're not planning to go looking for it." I grinned reassuringly. "Come on, you know me. I'll be careful." But her obvious fear made me hesitate. Sarah was never one to scare easily. If she said something frightening was out there, I believed it. I'd have to take extra precautions on this case. Over hot tea, I told Sarah about the strange accounts I'd been hearing of unseen things stalking the unwary. She nodded grimly. "I've heard the stories too. They say these creatures have always been here, as old as the town itself. But lately, people are seeing them more often. It's like they're done hiding." She leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. Old folktales describe them as living shadows, formless and dark, but with terrible glowing eyes. I always thought they were just stories, but now. A heavy silence fell between us, the cheerful kitchen suddenly feeling cold and ominous. I suppressed a shiver, trying to ignore my racing heart. Living shadows with glowing eyes? What had I gotten myself into? But the investigator in me was hooked, determined to get to the bottom of this mystery. Sarah tried again to talk me out of pursuing the unseen beings, fearing I was endangering myself needlessly. But my mind was set. After making her promise to stay safely indoors after dark, I left to gather more information before night fell. There had to be clues about what these creatures were and how to reveal them. My search led me to the local university library, where I met with Dr. Emily Carter, a professor of occult studies. If dark legends were linked to the town's shadowy visitors, she would be my best bet at finding answers. Dr. Carter peered at me over her glasses as I explained my interest in the unseen creatures. To my relief, she didn't dismiss my questions as foolishness. "You're not the first outsider to come here chasing shadows," she said cryptically. "Not all who went looking came back." She tilted her head, studying me with an intense, slightly unsettling gaze. "But you have a respectful energy about you. Perhaps you'll have better luck." With that ominous vote of confidence, Dr. Carter unlocked a storage room holding the university's collection of rare books on local history and folklore. Inside, we found several references to creatures living on the periphery, only visible when they wished to be seen. Some texts referred to them as shunned ones, hinting at some ancient falling out with the townspeople. But the most valuable clue came from a book of protective charms, which included instructions on safely revealing the unseen. To see clearly, the hidden follower present a surface of flawless glass under the moon's full light. But beware, for this will alert them of your presence. Well, that was a start. I carefully photocopied the passage, not wanting to remove the fragile book from the library. Dr. Carter promised to share any other useful information she uncovered, wishing me luck as I left to prepare for nightfall. Back at my motel room, I rummaged for tools that might aid my search: flashlight, binoculars, digital camera equipment, and the hand mirror from the bathroom. A surface of flawless glass. Hopefully a mirror would do the trick. The waiting was agonizing, but finally the sun sank below the horizon. It was time. The streets were empty and still as I made my way towards the woods at the town's edge where most of the sightings occurred. The beam of my flashlight cut through the dark, picked out twisted bare branches that clutched at the night sky. The mirror, polished clean, was tucked safely in my jacket pocket. Part of me hoped nothing would happen, that I'd find no trace of the so-called living shadows. But the eerie hush that had fallen over the world told me something was already watching, waiting. I entered a small clearing surrounded by dense trees. Taking a deep breath to steady my racing heart, I took out the mirror and angled it toward the full moon above. The pale orb seemed impossibly large and bright, its gauzy light washing across the glass surface. For long moments, all was utterly still. Then, was that a flicker of movement in the trees behind me? I whirled, peering into the darkness, but saw nothing. Turning my attention back to the mirror, I couldn't stifle a gasp. A shadow stood silhouetted behind my reflection, tall and terribly thin. As I stared, frozen in shock, two eyes flickered open in the darkness, glowing white-blue and intensely bright, yet horribly cold and inhuman. The creature had a vaguely humanoid outline, but its proportions were disturbingly elongated. As it tilted its head, regarding me curiously, it moved in an odd, jerky fashion as if its bones weren't properly joined. Though it had no visible mouth, I sensed it smiling, a predatory baring of teeth. In desperate hope that the stories were wrong, that it meant no harm, I whispered, "Hello." The creature went unnaturally still, then, with startling speed, darted forward, a writhing mass of shadows. I cried out, dropping the mirror which shattered on the ground, and ran blindly into the night. Behind me came the sound of inhuman shrieks, like the squealing of metal on metal. I crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping at my face and tearing my clothes, but I didn't dare stop. I could hear the thing giving chase, letting out unearthly screams as it closed in. What had I been thinking? I should never have gone looking for these creatures of darkness. Suddenly a root snagged my foot and I went sprawling. I rolled over just as that seething shadow loomed above me, eyes blazing furiously, claws extended towards my face. A gunshot split the night. The creature recoiled with an ear-splitting wail as a flashlight beam momentarily illuminated it, revealing a twisted, inhuman shape like condensed smoke. Silver bullets, I realized dazedly. My head snapped towards the source of the gunshot. Officer James Harris stood nearby, face grim, pistol aimed steadily at the writhing creature. "Get up and run, kid. It won't hold back long." I stumbled to my feet and Harris urged me past him, firing off another shot at the enraged monster. We crashed through the trees, the officer guiding us unerringly while I limped painfully along, my ankle throbbing. Behind us, the shrieks and howls of the foiled creature echoed mournfully. We didn't stop until the lights of Main Street glowed ahead. I collapsed against Harris's patrol car, gasping for breath. The stern-faced officer scrutinized me critically. "Reckless move, trying to get a look at those things," he said gruffly. When I started to defend my actions, he held up a hand. I know. I was young and foolhardy once too. Thought I could handle the shadows." His eyes took on a distant, haunted look. "Lost some good men learning that lesson." He focused back on me intently. "Do yourself a favor and leave town as soon as you can walk, right? The shadows don't often give up their vengeance so easily." I nodded mutely, shaken by my narrow escape and the officer's grim warning. But despite it all, I still burned with a desire to understand this town's hidden evils. Harris seemed to sense my lingering curiosity. He sighed. "No use trying to warn off some folks, I suppose. Tell you what, come by the station tomorrow and I'll tell you what I know about our unseen friends. Maybe it'll be enough to satisfy this crazy obsession of yours. But heed me well, don't go looking for them again. It only ends badly." He deposited me back at my motel where I treated my injured ankle as best I could. Exhaustion soon dragged me into restless sleep, my dreams haunted by glowing eyes and shrieking shadows. Morning finally came, and with it blessed daylight that seemed to keep the creatures at bay. When I arrived at the police station the next day, Harris led me back to his office looking weary, as if he hadn't slept. He gestured for me to sit, then seemed to gather himself before speaking. I didn't always believe in those shadows, he began slowly. Thought they were just spooky stories folks told kids to keep them in line. But I learned different a year back when some young idiots decided to go shadow hunting on a dare. His jaw tightened. We found 2 of them the next morning, scared dead with no marks on them. The third was never seen again. Since then, I started paying closer attention to the old legends. Those things are real and they're evil. Harris looked me in the eye. Word is they're older than this town, been lurking in the surrounding wilderness since before people settled here. We'd leave offerings to appease them, following all the little rules to keep away their wrath. But looks like we slacked on the traditions over the years, and now they're creeping in, punishing us. I shivered at his grim tale, understanding now the deep scars left on this community. He went on to confirm details I'd already gleaned about the creatures, their weakness to silver, the way glass could reveal them under moonlight. Valuable insight, but all warnings to avoid further contact. The officer refused to disclose anything more that might aid future encounters. Thanking Harris for his time and sage advice, I left the station pondering what I'd learned. Clearly, I had underestimated the seriousness of the threat I'd so recklessly pursued. These creatures had terrorized generations of townspeople and still did not appreciate outsiders like myself meddling in their domain. They were not merely specters to be studied at a distance, but evil incarnate. Despite all I now knew, that insatiable spark of curiosity still burned within me. I needed to know more. Why had the rift formed between the shadows and the townspeople? Was reconciliation possible after so long? But I also couldn't ignore the danger. Another run-in could easily prove fatal or drive me to madness. In the end, I decided to leave well enough alone for now. The answers I sought could only be found through further encounters with the shadows themselves, and I wasn't ready to risk that. Not yet. There were other paranormal trails to follow that wouldn't endanger my life and sanity. But someday I might return, strengthened and prepared to unravel the rest of this town's tragic, frightening mysteries. For today, it was time to bid the unseen shadows farewell. I hoped never to gaze upon those cold, dead lights again. Let them keep their secrets so long as I could walk safely under the sun. But if we ever meet once more on another moon-drenched night, I'll be ready. The darkness holds no more surprises for me. This time I will be the hunter.